Most people spend 40 years working toward a retirement they get to enjoy for maybe 15 or 20. They follow the script: school, job, save what you can, retire at 65, hope the money lasts. And somewhere in their 30s or 40s, they start wondering if that was the only option or just the one nobody questioned. Retiring at 40 is not a fantasy. It is a math problem. And like most math problems, it has a real answer, one that depends on specific numbers, not wishful thinking. Some people can do it, some cannot. And the difference between those two groups is almost never income mass, it is almost always the savings rate. This video gives you the real numbers, the real obstacles, and an honest answer to whether retiring at 40 is actually on the table for you. If this is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe and give this a thumbs up. Let's get into it. The concept behind early retirement is called FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. It has been around in some form for decades but exploded in popularity over the last 10 years as a generation of people started questioning whether the traditional retire at 65 timeline was necessary or just the default nobody challenged. The core idea is simple. If you can accumulate enough invested assets that the investment returns on those assets cover your living expenses indefinitely, you no longer need a paycheck. Work becomes optional. You have reached financial independence. Whether you actually stop working is a separate question. The freedom is the point. The math that underlies all of it is called the 25 times rule. You take your expected annual spending in retirement and multiply it by 25. That is your FIRE number, the amount you need invested to be financially independent. If you plan to spend $40,000 per year in retirement, you need $1 million. If you plan to spend $60,000 per year, you need $1,500,000. If you plan to spend $80,000 per year, you need $2 million. The 25 times rule comes directly from the 4% safe withdrawal rate. If you have 25 times your annual expenses invested and you withdraw 4% per year, your money has historically lasted 30 years or more through every major market crash in the last century. The math is not complicated. The execution is where it gets hard. Now here's where most FIRE content glosses over something important. The 4% rule was designed for 30-year retirements. If you retire at 40 and live to 90, that is a 50-year retirement. 50 years of withdrawals, 50 years of inflation, 50 years of market cycles. The historical data for 50-year retirements is less forgiving than for 30-year ones. Most FIRE researchers who have looked seriously at the data for very early retirees now recommend a withdrawal rate closer to 3.25% to 3.5%, which means the multiplier is closer to 28 to 30 times annual expenses, not 25. At 3.5% withdrawal rate, the numbers shift. $40,000 per year spending now requires $1,143,000. $60,000 per year requires $1,714,000. $80,000 per year requires $2,286,000. Not dramatically different, but meaningfully more conservative for a 50-year horizon. So how do you actually get there by 40? The answer is the savings rate. This is the number that determines everything in early retirement planning, far more than income, investment returns, or any other variable. Here's what the math actually shows. If you save 10% of your income, it takes roughly 40 years to reach financial independence, which is the traditional retirement path. If you save 20%, it takes about 30 years. Save 30%, and you get there in roughly 23 years. Save 40%, and it drops to about 18 years. Save 50%, and you can reach financial independence in approximately 14 years. Save 60%, and it drops to about 10 years. Save 70% of your income, and you can reach financial independence in roughly 7 years. That last number is what makes early retirement at 40 possible. If you start working at 22 and save 60% to 70% of your income, for 7 to 10 years, you can potentially reach financial independence by your early 30s. If you start at 25 and save 50%, you might reach it by your early to mid-40s. The income level matters less than most people think above a basic threshold. Someone earning $60,000 and saving 60% of it is investing $36,000 per year. Someone earning $150,000 and saving 20% of it is investing $30,000 per year. The lower earner with the higher savings rate reaches financial independence faster. Not because they earn more, because more of what they earn is going to work for them. Now the 5 FIRE variations, because not all early retirement looks the same, and some versions are significantly more achievable than others. Lean FIRE is the most aggressive version. You target very low annual spending, $40,000 or less, which means you need $1 million or less to be financially independent. This requires genuine minimalism, a paid-off small home in a low cost of living area. No car payment, no expensive hobbies, no international travel. For people whose genuine preferences align with simple living, this works well. For people who think they can force themselves to live this way, but have not tested it seriously, it often does not. Regular FIRE is what most people mean when they talk about the FIRE movement. Spending $50,000 to $80,000 per year in retirement requires between $1,250,000 and $2 million invested. A middle-class lifestyle without deprivation, a reasonable home, a car, vacations, dining out occasionally. This is achievable on a solid income with a sustained 40% to 50% savings rate over 15 to 18 years. Fat FIRE is financial independence with no lifestyle compromise. Spending $100,000 or more per year in retirement requires $2,500,000 or more invested. This almost always requires a high income, $200,000 or above, or a business exit or some other wealth event. Fat FIRE at 40 is rare. Fat FIRE at 50 is more realistic for high earners. Barista FIRE is the one that often gets underestimated. You reach partial financial independence, enough that you could survive on your portfolio alone at a basic level, and then take a part-time or low-stress job that covers some expenses and ideally provides health benefits. The part-time income dramatically reduces the pressure on your portfolio. If you need $60,000 per year and a part-time job provides $20,000, of that you only need to withdraw $40,000 from investments, requiring $1 million instead of $1,500,000. You reach Barista FIRE 3 to 5 years earlier than full FIRE, and you solve the healthcare problem simultaneously. Coast FIRE is the most underappreciated version. You save aggressively in your 20s and early 30s, accumulating enough that even if you stop contributing entirely, the compound growth will carry the portfolio to a traditional retirement number by age 65. Once you hit your Coast number, you can stop saving aggressively, work less, choose jobs based on enjoyment rather than income, and let time and compounding do the rest. At 35 with $250,000 invested, at a 7% average return, that portfolio grows to approximately $1,930,000 by age 65 with no additional contributions. You have coasted to retirement. Now the 4 obstacles that most FIRE content does not address honestly enough. Obstacle 1. Healthcare. This is the biggest practical challenge for any early retiree in the United States, and it gets significantly harder in 2026. Traditional employees retire at 65 and Medicare kicks in immediately. Retire at 40, and you have 25 years of private health insurance to fund before Medicare. ACA Marketplace premiums for a 40-year-old in 2026 range from roughly $400 to $800 per month depending on the plan, location, and coverage level. The enhanced premium tax credits that made ACA plans more affordable through 2025 expired at the end of 2025, meaning 2026 Marketplace premiums are significantly higher than they were a year ago. A couple both retiring early could be looking at $1,000 to $1,600 per month in health insurance premiums alone. That is $12,000 to $19,200 per year just for coverage before a single medical bill. The workaround that serious FIRE practitioners use is income-based ACA subsidy optimization, because ACA subsidies are based on income, not wealth. A retiree who manages their annual withdrawals and investment income to stay below 400% of the federal poverty level qualifies for substantial premium subsidies. For a couple in 2026, that threshold is approximately $79,000 per year. If you can structure your retirement income to stay below that level, the subsidies can reduce premiums dramatically. But it requires deliberate tax planning and is not guaranteed to remain available as policy changes. Obstacle 2. Accessing retirement accounts before 59 and a half. Most people saving aggressively for early retirement are putting money into 401k plans and IRAs, tax-advantaged accounts that come with a 10% early withdrawal penalty if you take money out before age 59 and a half. If you retire at 40, you have a 19-year gap before you can access the bulk of your retirement savings without penalty. There are 3 ways to bridge this gap. The first is a taxable brokerage account. Money invested in a regular brokerage account, not inside a 401k or IRA, can be withdrawn at any time without penalty. The trade-off is that you lose the tax advantages of retirement accounts. Serious early retirement planners typically build both a tax-advantaged portfolio and a taxable brokerage account simultaneously. The tax advantage for long-term growth, the taxable for the gap years. The second is the Roth conversion ladder. You move money from a traditional 401k or IRA into a Roth IRA each year. After 5 years, the converted amount can be withdrawn penalty-free. The 5-year clock starts from the date of each conversion. If you start the ladder 5 years before you retire, you can begin accessing converted funds immediately at retirement. The third is Rule 72T, also called Substantially Equal Periodic Payments, or SEPP. This IRS rule allows you to take regular distributions from a retirement account before age 59.5 without the 10% penalty as long as you follow a specific calculated schedule for at least 5 years or until age 59.5, whichever is longer. It gives you penalty-free access but removes flexibility. Once you start SEPP payments, you are locked into the schedule. Obstacle 3. Sequence of returns risk over 50 years. We covered this concept in the context of the 4% rule in the previous video, but it is even more critical for early retirees. A 40-year-old who retires in a year when the market immediately drops 30% and spends the next 3 years in a bear market is pulling money from a shrinking portfolio during what should be the most critical early years of their 50-year retirement. The mitigation is the same as for any retiree. Maintain a cash buffer of 1 to 2 years of living expenses outside the investment portfolio, so you are never forced to sell investments during a downturn. But for an early retiree, this buffer needs to be larger because the runway is longer, and the sequence of returns matters more. Many FIRE practitioners recommend a 2 to 3 year cash buffer and a more conservative withdrawal rate in the first decade of retirement, something closer to 3% to 3.5%, allowing the portfolio to grow when markets are good and protecting it when markets are not. Obstacle 4. Social Security. This one almost nobody in the FIRE community talks about openly. When you stop working at 40, you stop contributing to Social Security. Your eventual Social Security benefit is calculated based on your 35 highest earning years. If you only worked 18 years from age 22 to 40, the remaining 17 years in the calculation are filled with zeros, which dramatically reduces your eventual benefit. Someone who works a full career to 65 might collect $2,500 per month from Social Security at full retirement age. Someone who retired at 40 and spent 25 years not contributing might collect $800 to $1,200 per month, depending on what they earned during their working years. That gap of $1,000 to $1,700 per month, $12,000 to $20,400 per year for life, is the hidden long-term cost of early retirement that most FIRE spreadsheets quietly ignore. It does not make early retirement a bad idea, but it means your portfolio needs to do more heavy lifting in retirement than the basic math suggests. Because the Social Security safety net that traditional retirees rely on will be meaningfully smaller for you. So who does this actually work for? Retiring at 40 works most cleanly for someone who can genuinely live on $40,000 to $60,000 per year in retirement, either in a low cost of living area or with paid-off housing, who has been earning a solid income and maintaining a 50% or higher savings rate for at least 12 to 15 years, who has built both tax-advantaged retirement accounts and a meaningful taxable brokerage account, who has a realistic plan for healthcare, and who has honestly asked themselves whether they actually want to stop working entirely at 40 or just want the freedom to choose their work. That last question matters more than most FIRE content acknowledges. A significant number of people who reach FIRE continue working, just differently. They consult, freelance, work on passion projects, start businesses, not because they have to, but because purposeful work with financial security underneath it feels very different from working because you must. The freedom and the work are not mutually exclusive. If you want to take a serious first step toward this, regardless of whether 40 is your actual target, the most useful thing you can do right now is calculate your actual savings rate, not your intended savings rate, your actual one. Divide what you are investing each month by your take-home income. That number tells you more about when you could reach financial independence than any other single metric. Then calculate your FIRE number. Take your current monthly spending, multiply by 12, multiply by 28. That gives you a conservative target that accounts for a 50-year retirement horizon rather than the 30-year horizon the basic 25 times rule was designed for. The gap between what you have and what you need is the problem. Your savings rate is the speed at which you are solving it. 40 might not be your number, but 55 might be, or 50 or 48. The question is not whether you can retire at 40 exactly. The question is whether you are making decisions today that give you options tomorrow. And the answer to that question is entirely within your control.